Maasai call the flamingo the firebird. They believe that they're a mysterious bird that are associated with reincarnation. It's like the phoenix that rises out of the ashes. It's the African phoenix, in other words. The first time I really saw a flamingo was in 1988 when I came to Nakuru and actually went down to the lake, and I saw this mass of pink, this pink fringe around the lake. And my feeling has never changed since then. Every time I look at this awe-inspiring sight, it takes your breath away. Boris, you notice how the birds are kind of over there all spread out? Yeah. Right? Lake Nakuru and Lake Bogoria are perhaps the most important feeding grounds for the birds. In no other lake in the Rift Valley have numbers of flamingos reach the levels that they have in Nakuru and Bogoria, where having about 1.5 million birds on the lake for anything up to 1 year is quite a regular feature. In 1993, we experienced a die-off of flamingos. We had never seen anything like this before. We were down at the lake and we were watching birds just fall over and die, and that's rather unusual. We began to investigate the cause of the death, and our initial findings were very uncertain. We could not pin it down to any known infection. The birds were in prime physical condition, and given the kind of lesions we were seeing, we suspected that a toxin might be involved. Initially, we caught healthy flamingos because we needed to compare the healthy flamingos with the sick ones that we had encountered during the die-offs. All right. So initially we decided this is pretty easy. Here we have almost 1 million birds on the lakeshore. It shouldn't be difficult to catch half a dozen. But the capture of flamingos really bamboozled us to start off with. We didn't catch a single flamingo. We were quite desperate at that point. We were prepared to try anything.
Okay, and here we go.
Finally, a person who had been involved in capturing herons in the United States suggested we might try and use snares. So we prepared simple snares with a slip knot and fastened them to the well mesh, and then just dropped the well mesh into the water and walked away, hardly believing that such a primitive apparatus would be able to capture flamingos. Here's all right. About here's okay, I would think. Not too deep. Let's hope they work. And lo and behold, before we even turned around, we saw we had about 5 flamingos in our trap. I think we've got one. It's got a lot of life, this guy. Isn't that a beautiful thing? He is and has a lot of strength, which is really nice. Usually when we would come here to pick up the sick birds, they'd be so limp in your hands, you know. It's nice to feel a guy who's kicking and stamping and wanting to get away. We were able to identify concentrations of nearly every toxin that we looked for. We found the heavy metals, we found traces of pesticides. Okay, buddy, thanks for the contribution.
Let you go.
But I think my gut feeling right now is that there was no single toxin that we could pin down as being responsible for the death of the flamingos. So we do believe that these toxins are in a way predisposing the flamingos to die-offs as a result of natural stress factors. Voila. Gosh, I'm going to need a lot more water than that. WWF's association with Nakuru goes back a long way. And around the mid-80s, they got very concerned about the rapid development of agriculture in the catchment basin, the massive deforestation that was occurring in the area. And WWF wanted to look at the issues and see whether they could make a difference. When I spoke to farmers in the upper reaches of the catchment many, many years ago, they didn't believe that their farming practices had anything to do with Lake Nakuru. But that's changed a lot now. When you talk to people in town and you talk to farmers, they understand the connection between land use practices, between our lifestyles and the environment. So in order to sort of revert to the old state, more or less, we've got to try and reintegrate trees into the agricultural system. And that means planting trees and crops together, trying to restore as much of the ground cover as possible, and to try and return the hydrological process to what they were in the past. So what we have here is an earthen dam, one of the conservation strategies that is being promoted. There's been a lot of runoff in this area, and a lot of this water generally gets lost. But the farmers now have started to trap this water in little dams like this. This water is just collecting right at his doorstep. You know, it's available to him throughout the year. And from the environmental point of view, it's great because what it's doing is recharging the groundwater, which is probably also contributing to the spring. And it's retaining all the sediment in the runoff right here. And each year he says he comes and clears it out, so the sediment goes into his tree nursery, you know, to pack up the polythene bags in which he plants his trees. So he's not losing any soil. In fact, he's gaining soil from some of the neighboring farms who haven't instituted conservation measures. You know, see, right? Their loss is his gain. So, you know, when the word gets around, I think a few more people will want to be trapping water as well. I think for me the most pleasurable thing has been to see people apply conservation principles and enjoy tangible benefits in their own lifetime. I've been at Nakuru since 1988, and I was here all the way through to the end of 1999. I never regretted a single day. I still don't regret having spent 10 years in Lake Nakuru, and my family blossomed along and weren't the worse for it. My kids adore Nakuru. They love the life they had here, the fact that the park was nearby, there's a lot more of nature around. They're very outdoor sort of kids. I think that love of animals and the attachment with nature was sort of developed here in Nakuru. Nakuru is like an infection. Once you get infected, it's very hard to get cured. It's such a absorbing challenge that it has managed to keep all of us on board all these years without even wanting to look at another prospect of another job anywhere. So we really love Nakuru.